Well, hello and welcome back to Bethy Marie. Today we are going to be making one of my favorite snack appetizer type dishes, bruschetta, tomato bruschetta. Now, this is my little spin on it. You can make this a million different ways, but the main things are tomatoes, basil, garlic, olive oil, salt and pepper, and then obviously some bread and cheese. So we're going to mix all of it together into one delicious snack. So let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to cut up our tomatoes. I am going to use a pound of Roma tomatoes. I like Roma because they're a little more beefy and a little bit less juicy because we don't want our bruschetta mixture to be too wet. So that's why I'm using Roma. You'll also notice that I have a little bit of a little sieve here sitting in my bowl. So what I'm going to do is basically just chop up my tomatoes, and then I am going to just drop the diced tomatoes into this to allow them to drain a little bit so we can pull out some of the moisture and still have a delicious tomato taste. All right, so I've diced my tomatoes, drained them, and now they're in the bowl. Make sure you don't cut them up too big. Make sure the chunks are smallish because it needs to be something that's easy to just grab and bite really quickly. Okay, next, garlic. So I'm going to use some fresh garlic here. I love garlic. So if you love garlic too, you can feel free to use as much or as little as you would like, but I would do at least 2 cloves of garlic in with 1 pound of tomatoes. I'm going to use a few because these ones are smaller. But go ahead and get your garlic ready. Why not use 4? They're little, so. And garlic is good for you too, right? All right, so let's just use my handy little garlic press here. So now that you have some garlic in there, you're going to want some basil. I'm using some fresh basil, and you can do as much or as little as you like. Again, some large leaves. You want about 3 tablespoons or so of minced basil. So go ahead and just grab a pile of leaves. I always find it easier to cut it when it's all in one big pile here. Oh, I love the smell of basil. So fresh, so delicious. So what I like to do is just kind of bunch it up and then just gently slice small little slices. Just be really careful of your fingers, and then you kind of spin it and just start cutting it up, getting nice small little bits. We don't want huge chunks in there. That's definitely at least 3 tablespoons, probably a little bit more. All right, so we have tomatoes, garlic, and basil. Basic 3 ingredients. Then you're going to want a little bit of olive oil. Not too much, you don't want it too oily or too wet, but I'm going to do about 2 tablespoons in there. And then just add some salt and pepper, however you like it, and it will taste amazing. All right, a little bit of pepper. All right, now just stir this up, and we're going to let the flavors just marinate and come together and sit. And oh my goodness, this is going to be so good. I wish you could smell it. So fresh, so healthy, so delicious. Okay, so here's my bruschetta topping. I'm going to set this aside and start prepping the bread and cheese. All right, so for the bread, I like to use a smaller diameter loaf of bread. So this is I just have 2 small little baguettes. A baguette is great. If you don't have that and you just have a big fat thick loaf of French bread, that will work well. But I love to use baguettes for bruschetta. So go ahead and cut some slices. It looks a little more decorative if you can cut it on an angle. So we're just going to slice up both of these loaves. Not too thick, about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch thick is perfect. This bread is nice and it's a little bit denser than some bread, so it's a good carrier for the tomato topping. Okay, so I have sliced up my bread. This is the equivalent of 1 long loaf. They just happen to be 2 short loaves. And now what I'm going to do is get a baking sheet, and I'm going to set all of the slices of bread face up on the baking sheet. So as you can see, this recipe would make enough to feed, well, 2 or 3 hungry people, or it would be great for an appetizer to just set out at a party or anything like that. So here we have our slices of baguette. And next, what I'm going to do is just brush a little bit of olive oil over the top of them. Not too much, but just enough to moisten the bread a smidge. And I am going to then sprinkle a little bit of garlic powder on top. Now, we don't want too much because we already have it in our bruschetta mixture. So let's get our garlic powder, and again, remember, just a little bit. And I just like to gently sprinkle it over the top, just to give that bread a little bit of pop. All right. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put some cheese slices on top of our bread. Mozzarella cheese is definitely the way to go. And I have 2 different kinds of cheese here. This one is like a pre-sliced log of a fresh mozzarella. And then this one is just a part skim mozzarella. I love this brand, Galvani. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's delicious. And so we can slice this up and we can use this too. Whatever you prefer. I just happen to have 2 different kinds in my fridge, so that's what we're using today. Now, these ones that are pre-sliced tend to be a little bit thick, actually, which is okay. They're not too bad. They're just like little medallions. That's the perfect size. You're just going to lay one on top of each piece of bread. Each piece of bread has a piece of cheese, and then you're going to put this under the broiler for just a little bit, just long enough for the cheese to start to melt down onto the bread. It doesn't need to get browned or crispy at all. You just want to see it starting to melt and soften on the bread. And it looks like we need just a little bit more. So I'll open up this pack and add to the other 4 slices. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to finish putting some cheese on this bread. And a piece for my mouth. All right. So go ahead and put this in the broiler. Keep a close eye on it. Again, we just want to see the cheese start to melt and soften up a bit and get the bread nice and warm. All right, we'll be back. All right, so I just pulled these hot bruschetta out of the oven. And as you can see, the cheese has melted on the top. There's a little bit of browning on the edge of the bread, but nothing crazy. And they are ready to be topped with delicious tomato bruschetta. So what I typically do is I put my cheesy bread on the plate first that I'm going to be serving from, and pick a few different pretty looking ones here, and then come over here. Let's give this another stir real quick. And then what I'm going to do is just scoop out some fresh bruschetta. Just a spoonful. You don't need too much or else it'll all fall off. All right, give ourselves a little more space here. So I'm just going to show you again, just a spoonful of bruschetta, not too much because it'll just fall off the bread, and just gently place it on top of the melted cheese like that. Now you can use this bruschetta on crackers and on just plain toast if you like, but I love it with a little bit of cheese added in, the bread nice and toasted warm, and it's delicious. Now, it's good just like this, or we can add one more little pop of deliciousness. All right, so my secret extra ingredient, it's not really a secret, but a little balsamic glaze drizzles on top makes this amazing. So take a look at this. Would you like some tomato bruschetta? You can make your own. I will link the recipe in the description below this video, and you can follow right along. It's not that hard. It's simple and so delicious. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and you will get updates and notifications whenever a new recipe comes up. Feel free to comment below, and I will see you next time. What's that?
It's hot.
It's not hot, it's bruschetta. It's good.
Hot chicken.